Let's just get started. I'm very excited about this session for many reasons. Number one, it's the last session of the last day of the last week of this program. We've been talking about Supernova for a while. I'm excited about, supporting Supernova because I really think that the idea is cool and the need is huge. And what happened is that a lot of you guys, a lot of people here in this cohort has been asking me questions about advisors, advisory boards, compensation and roles and suggestions. I make some intros. I know that some of the intros that we made from the accelerator ended up becoming advisors in your companies. It also happened in the previous cohort. So I'm happy that we're now officially talking about it in the sense that it's something that has been happening informally, kind of like as a almost as an accident, and now we have a chance to to officialize it. And I'm happy that Barry and Christopher are here to share their times because they are the experts, and that's exactly what Supernova is about.
My fellow founders, what's happening, brothers and sisters? So you couldn't make up a better set and setting for this webinar today. There literally is a hurricane happening behind me. And yet, just like our startups, which are, we're constantly juggling. I mean, everyone's startup is a shit show behind the scenes. We get to like show up and put on like a professional face and the show gets to go on and we get to, pretend like, hey, don't worry about everything behind me. I'm going to be calm in the eye of the storm. And so how perfect for today's session. You'll hear a little bit more about me as we jump through some of this content. I'm like you guys, I just want to jump right in. So let's just go. So we're gonna just jump right into best practices for advisory teams, advisory boards. And this is likely one of the least utilized, most powerful possibilities or potentials for any startup in the space. Those startups that know how to wield their advisory board successfully have an incredible advantage over those that do not. I don't know about you guys, but and I'll tell a little bit about my story, but I've often been surrounded by people around me who, with the snap of a finger, if they just engaged with some intention, could open doors, could just manifest things in record time. And yet getting their engagement, getting their participation, activating them, holding them accountable, running the advisory team like I would my management team and holding them to the same standards is something that just doesn't happen very often for startups. Instead, it's this awkward like relationship where we're like almost walking on eggshells. Well, can I have a little bit of your time? Meanwhile, we're giving them our equity. And if our companies are successful, that's a lot of money. And so anyway, we want to paint kind of a picture that hopefully is a promising path to a new normal, a new reality for you, for your relationships, for your advisors, one where we all can thrive together. And the premise of Supernova is that, we can combine our energies and go supernova. And so it is fitting that this is the last session of this journey that you all have. And it's also only the beginning. Supernovas explode, create more stars, create more universes. So it's all infinite. I'm going to have some advisory warnings and stuff is going to come up. And I want to just cut to core. Out of all of the best practices in starting startups and that ultimately are successful, the source code is relationships. The stronger the relationships, the more aligned the relationships, the more activated the relationships, ultimately the more success you'll have. And while we won't get into it today, that relationship begins with you. Yeah. So, a whole nother webinar on self-growth, personal development. There's a direct correlation to the health and wellness and well-being of the founders, the founding team and the company. You are your company and vice versa. And so take care of you. And we're going to talk about the relationships specifically that are advisors. And so hopefully most of you are familiar with this concept of the hero's journey. It's the storyline for every major high budget featured film. And for those of you that have seen Star Wars, you've likely seen how Luke has been leveled up thanks to the mentoring and tutelage of Master Yoda, among other teachers in his life. And that's really key. So hopefully all of you have someone that's got your back, someone that's whispering in your ear, someone that's helping you develop your superpowers, someone that's helping you believe in yourself and finding your purpose and finding your alignment, and ultimately supporting, your success. And then what's better than just one Master Jedi is a whole Jedi Council. A little bit about my story. So I started my first startup when I was in my early 20s. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know that I could or should even raise capital. I bootstrapped it. And like a cat with 9 lives, died a number of times, was told that I'm out of money. This isn't working. My father even told me, come home, Barry, this has been long enough. You're chalking up more and more debt. And I stuck with it. I was relentless and didn't give up. And we ended up merging with Responsys, and we ended up taking that company public and exiting as a unicorn to Oracle. My next startup, I thought I was the shit. I was like now legit. And I totally failed. I didn't listen to people. I couldn't have done, I did some things well, but most of the time, I was in my own kind of space, and I was numb, and I needed to go through some real personal growth and development so that I could play team and be a heart-led leader instead of a bulldog. And so anyway, long story short, started a founder community in Miami called Miami Made, brought founders together so we could stand in solidarity and really help one another. And so one of the best pieces of advice, for advisors, formal or informal, find other founders. Yeah, we're a rare breed. And I've seen founders at conferences talking to their, investors, and investors like, how you doing? Oh, I'm the shit. We just hit, product market fit, and then I see a founder in the bathroom. I'm like, how are you doing? He's like, oh my God, it's a fucking mess. Like my co-founder and I hate each other. I just lost my head of sales. Like I don't have enough money to get through, 90 more days of burn. You get the real. And so find other founders that can be there for you, and be there for them. And so, that's what we learned through Miami Made. Had a second exit as an entrepreneur, created a human accelerator called One Heart, where, as I mentioned, there's a correlation between the founders and the companies. So we get to make sure that you're powering and firing on all cylinders and flow states with mind heart coherence. I've been an advisor and mentor in EIR for the largest VC in terms of number of exits. That's 500. And obviously I'm with Chris now for Supernova, because we believe in all-star teams, like all-star advisory teams. And we're seeing already what that means as it relates to shared exits, through enabling collaboration. So why advisors? Well, most founders, almost all founders we speak to, they're interested in the same types of things. I want to grow as fast as I possibly can. Okay, great. And with the right advisors, I can land introductions and close, hopefully, 6, 7, 8-figure deals. I can get access to lead VCs. I can get access to super angels and angels. I can accelerate my speed at which I'm able to get a cash reserve and sustain ongoing growth. And then ultimately talent, right? So once you have the funds, once you're growing, you need the supply side. And so how fast can I find the right resources? As you all know, early stage, you hire the wrong resources, it sets you back 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. So finding the right resources is really critical, and having folks who have hired and managed and fired is really, really helpful, especially operating talent. And, it's really easy to idolize the winners of today. You open up, Wired Magazine, or you read about people online, especially a lot of these, blockchain companies. You're like, oh my God, how are they getting, funding so fast? How are they growing so quickly? How do they get their team together? Everybody's getting helped. And so any top founder that I've spoken to, and most of this isn't published or well known, they've been backed by some really great master Jedis early on. So just know that that's happening. And even some of the idols, you can look at like Sir Richard Branson, which is like a poster child for what it means to be, a founder. He was going to eat it if he had not had the help of Freddie early on, who actually knew the industry, could actually help lift him up out of the dark spots and bring him through. Also to Zuckerberg, right? I mean, great that he started Facebook and great that it was doing really well, but then it wasn't, and he was going to be forced to sell the company until Jobs actually recommended that he find himself, that he find his purpose. And so he went to a temple, same one that Jobs went to have a visioning exercise, and then really connected with his heart to like, why, what's his why? And came back with a mission that ignited a lot of the light that happened for what is now Meta. So you don't always hear these stories, but they're very real. And trust me, we're all, we all have that voice in our head, which is the itty bitty shitty committee that's like constantly, kind of ragging on yourself or being really critical about, co-founders, employees, and how we can make things better. It's great in a way for business, and also it can take a toll on you. So it's really good to have people who can help pull you up. Elevate you, help you rise to your potential, and really see that through. The founders of Tuft & Needle. So most of you have probably heard of Casper, the mattress in the box company. They've raised over $350 million. Well, Tuft & Needle started at the exact same time. We raised zero. And within just 5 years, hit 250 million in annual reoccurring revenue. Two co-founders bootstrapped it, and I've been a founding advisor, and we did it. And if you talk to them, they'll say, and as you can read from this quote, like how pivotal their advisors were in that process. I'm going to share some more interesting insights of lessons learned from them in just a few slides here. But the bottom line is founders can be, and often are, a foundation for transformation, for startups, and really a fountain of growth. And so it's up to you to choose your own adventure, to choose those key people, like the kind of image on the right around you, right? Almost like you're a node in a network. Like, who are those people that are going to be my pillars of excellence? And ultimately, how am I going to work together with them and play team? And so let's look at the current startup model and what's broken. By the way, if there's any questions that come up while I'm talking, you can tell I'm an extrovert. I'll talk fast. This is being recorded, so you can play it back if there's any confusion. Also, drop in some questions in the chat thread or where you want to dive a little deeper, if you want resources, and Chris and I can facilitate that here towards the end. So the traditional startup advisory model is broken. Ask founders, ask advisors, ask VCs. It's a weird relationship that and dynamic that really hasn't been given that much attention. So on average, there's an expectation that if I sign you in as an advisor, and granted, this completely depends on if it's early stage and the valuation of the company and the dynamics of the relationship. But on average, for earlier stage companies, if you're signing advisors, there's typically an expectation of somewhere between like 6 to 8 hours a month in terms of contribution, a call or two, and maybe some behind the scenes legwork. The reality is that months can go by where you won't talk to an advisor, and the advisor continues to vest. The other thing that's interesting is that most founders on their cap table are giving away anywhere between 5 to 10% of their equity to advisors over the course of the early years of starting their company. That's a lot of equity. And depending on the valuations of your companies, you're giving away millions and millions of dollars for advisors that often are lame or just float. So it's a pretty cool gig for those of us that have those kind of advisory roles where you don't need to pick up a call and you're just vesting equity and you're getting paid out based on liquidity events. But not so much founder friendly. The other call out is that most vesting terms for advisory relationships are somewhere between 2 to 3 years. Now, if you've got a hotshot exited founder, unicorn founder, they might want a 1-year accelerated vesting term. If you're unsure about the advisor, you can incorporate into the contract a cliff. And for those of you that don't know what a cliff is, it basically means that if you were giving me equity, I wouldn't get access to that equity until after I passed or surpassed the 3-month cliff or a 6-month cliff. It's a way you can effectively try them out And if you fire them within 3 months, then they don't get any of the equity. So just know that there are those mechanisms and levers legally that can help protect you in those relationships when you're first trying out advisors. And so, you know, while an advisor might kind of scoff at like, well, why is there a cliff? You know, you could just, you know, I mean, that it's also a way to protect your equity, and also, you know, kind of be a little bit more judicious with the value of the company, knowing that ultimately you're stewarding that for the benefit of all. What is the average impact of an advisor for a said startup? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Why? Because it's not tracked. It's not measured. Most advisors aren't at all held accountable for the output or pull through of what they produce, which makes no sense, right? Would you hire a salesperson and not track and measure their sales performance? Would you hire a head of engineering and not track and measure? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And yet that's been how it is. We've been treating advisors almost like, you know, they're gods, and they can be. They can perform like gods if they choose to be, or if they're aligned in incentive, and we'll get more into that. But that doesn't make a lot of sense. And so today, and so if we really look at the problem is that most startups are struggling first and foremost to just recruit top advisors. So a lot of startups will go to whatever's within arm's reach. So, oh, well, I had this teacher in school who really was a mentor to me, and so I want to put them on a cap table because they've been good for me and I want to get them some equity. Or this investor invested, and so I'm going to put them on my board or my advisory board. And are they the best ones to actually advise you? Do they have the relevant experience to support you? Are they connected? Are they going to be able to make the right introductions with and or for you? And are they going to pull through? I mean, they're already invested, so they already have skin in the game. So anyway, the point is, recruiting's a thing. Engaging them is a whole nother thing, right? Making sure that they're actively engaged, that they understand, you know, with intimacy, like the finger on the pulse of what's happening with your business, that you're actually managing them and letting them know, like, here's what I need, and making sure that they're coming through, and ultimately that they're incentivized, perhaps even beyond the equity, which we'll talk about. And so it's not just the early stage startups that perhaps don't have a lot of equity or money or high valuation to offer. It's also the elite startups. I mean, startups that are backed by top VC companies often are that we talk to are really equally upset with the lack of output or results produced by their advisory board. So a quick, you know, reality check. When asked, you know, 100 top founders, you know, what would help you the most today? Almost all of them were like, help us with sales. Like, we want introductions to, we know who the accounts or customers that we want to sign. We know how to grow. This is where you can help. They also are all looking for talent constantly, and also funding. Interestingly, though, top 4, and this is true when VCs pull their startup portfolio as well, majority of startups, you know, top 4, top 5 requests, I want better advisors. I want better mentors. And why is that the case? The reason that's the case is because those advisors, those mentors, can help them with all of the rest of these things. So they can help with sales growth, they can help with funding, they can often help with the recruitment, and ultimately, you know, steward the management of talent. And so we're going to look at a quick playbook here. There's an image not loading, classic. This is Startup World. This is a playbook for how you can approach your advisory team most successfully. And so we've kind of framed five tips or 5 key best practices that we're suggesting, and they are as follows. 1, really focusing and honing in on what's mission critical. So what is the most important thing that you can get done this week, this month, this business calendar quarter? What would ultimately move the needle most substantially for your startup, and or what's keeping you up at night? And really attacking those big rocks, you know, really coming through on what would be a total game changer with and or for you. Number 2, superstars. Finding the absolute best resources to support you. So finding the advisors that can help you knock out number 1, the number 1 priorities in your company. Okay. Number 3, playing team. So aligning with those superstars, aligning with those advisors, and having them play just as like an all-star sports team, right? Like we know, like, the all-stars, from sports, like they're the best of the best. So how can they then play together most successfully to just address number one in as fast and as best as humanly possible. Number four, really incentivizing them so that they do so with speed. Most advisory relationships are based on a vesting schedule. As an advisor, if I'm your advisor, I have no incentive to give away all that I know right away. In fact, I want to stick around for 18 months, 24 months, 36 months, so I'm fully vested. Doesn't make any sense. So if we have a relationship that's different, where you say, hey, if you get this done, I'm going to accelerate your vesting. Well, I'm going to get it done a whole lot faster because I want that equity now, or I want to get bonused on a 6, 7, 8-figure contract now. So there's a way to align the incentives better with and or for you. And then finally, number 5, holding them accountable. So being real clear on, number 1, what is it we're focused on? Really making sure for number 2, they're in the right roles, that they're number 3, playing team, that they're properly incentive number 4. And if they're not getting it done, then making sure that they know that they have a very short leash and or a much shorter timeline to get it done. And if they don't get it done, you're going to let them go. You're going to find someone who can. And together you'll go to the promised land. So that these are the plays. We're going to just jump into them in a little bit more detail here. So what would number 1 be for you? Yeah, what's going to be the biggest? What's going to have the biggest impact on your company? What are you focused on right now? So if you look at kind of the categories here, each of these categories have, playbooks and best practices and tools and resources, and there's likely contacts that could be game changers to help foster and facilitate growth and success in each one of these areas. So you being really clear and knowing that intimately is very vital. Why? Because as an advisor, if we're showing up, we need to know how to best work with you. And if we're spending a lot of time in discovery and analysis and crunching, data, quantitative data, qualitative data to figure that out, we're eating up hours and in some ways wasting our time and yours when we could be taking action and getting shit done and making moves and generating results and creating impact. So you having that going in is vitally important. It's your role as a founder to know this stuff. The second thing is, there are some wonderful people out there with beautiful profiles. And don't just assume that they're total freaking rock stars, right? Trust yet verify. So are all of you familiar with Theranos? Yeah, the total debacle, right? So they had a who's who, and if you haven't, by the way, enjoy this weekend on Netflix, a great documentary. It's not a documentary, it's actually a movie, but really cool. It's either Netflix or Amazon. I think it's Netflix. Anyway, the point is, is it Amazon?
I think it's on Netflix. It's on
Netflix. Netflix. You can watch it. I love startup stories. Oh, the WeWork story also. What's that on Netflix?
We crashed. It's on.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, as founders, guys, the Silicon Valley show is freaking amazing too. I mean, as founders, we get some quality content for ourselves. Anyway, the point is, they had a who's roster of advisors. And all of these heavyweights, none of them really knew much about the work that they were actually doing. Yeah. So they weren't the right advisors. I mean, they were great. They could flex on, their website, and anybody that's investing could look and see kind of a who's who list of, and at the end of the day, none of them really understood the business, could really help guide and steward the founder. And if the movie's accurate, and you never know, sometimes these things are doctored, but the founder really wasn't very receptive to the feedback. Be receptive to feedback. Know your truth, stay in alignment with your integrity. Don't ever waver on that. And also, if people have already created success in the sector, market, industry vertical that you've been in, then odds are they're probably in a pretty good place to guide your path. So just know that, but also know that you really need to make sure you've got the right kind of domain expertise on your advisory team. So let's talk about the various advisor archetypes. I can fit people I've worked with and or for in all of these. So first things first, the cheerleader. All right, the cheerleader is awesome The cheerleader is like, you rock. And trust me, when you get doors slammed in your face every day by, investors, and when you're going to try to sell things or you're trying to recruit top talent, it feels really good to have someone that believes in you. That's like your mom or your dad or your, best friend. That's like, oh, that's awesome. You're starting a company, until you ask them for a check, or, and then they're not there for you. Anyway, the cheerleaders can be great. And also too, just know they often won't get hands-on. So that's important to know. The collectors. So the collectors are like, you can sign up like the CEO of like insert like multinational company or exited founder. They're great. They're like poster children to have on your pitch decks or on your website, or be able to brag or boast to your investors that they're on board. And the majority of time, they often don't have the time to return your calls or won't make the time. So they're it's like collecting sports cards. I mean, I liken it to that. Great to look at. The consultant. So the consultants, in terms of advisory archetypes, are wonderful. Like, you'll ask them a question, they'll have an answer. The challenge is, rarely do they take the time to learn the details of your business, the intimacy of your business, the dynamics. And so their kind of standard recommendations don't always fit. They're great for all, but they're not always right for you. So just know that they can be helpful, and also know that you get to kind of see their recommendations through that lens and really challenge them. The catalyst. Catalysts are like 007 agents. I mean, they come in and they can make stuff happen lickety split. They bring in a burst of energy. They can very quickly, help you get unstuck. And they're rarely going to stick around. So they're wonderful. It's like wonderful when they're in your orbit. And then also you get to know that you can't always count on them to always be there to follow through, per se. Next archetype is the connector. So connectors have unbelievable Rolodexes, right? They're connected with like a who's who. You need introductions to investors, they've got you. You need introductions to potential new hires, they've got you. You're looking to get meetings with these 30 companies, they can help out with a handful. And they'll take your call, and people will meet with you. So they're wonderful to have as part of your advisory team, at least one or two connectors. And also know too that the majority of the time, that's all you can count on them for. And then finally, there's an archetype, which is like the exited founders. And I believe, and what I'm hearing from a lot of founders, is that in some ways they're the best because they've been through everything you're going through. They've experienced everything that you're experiencing. And in many times they've had to juggle and play many roles. And so they too can be phenomenal, but know that they also can play many of these archetypes on various days. And so just be aware of that as you're kind of rolling into the advisory scene. Some really good advice is to not settle. Don't settle in life for your life partner. Don't settle in life for your co-founder, and certainly don't settle for your advisory team and or board. There are a lot of organizations where we've seen a cultivation of top founders that go on to become really good advisors. That's not to say that every partner or startup that's come through Andreessen Horowitz will make the best advisor, or same with YPO. And it is to say that if somebody has come through as a YPO founder, they've been given some guidance, some leadership, some tutelage, some mentorship, where they might make a better advisor than, say, someone that has not. So something to consider. But a reiteration of, you get to create your dream team. So when you look to, framing up your advisory board, consider that you're looking for stars. So if it were me, it's like, okay, I want a star. I want someone who's an absolute star, ideally a superstar in sales, that has built out a sales organization, or that's been a CRO for a company that's close to where I am, but that's gone on to level up through multiple stages of growth, so that they can help me see the future and then reverse engineer it and help me make sure that I'm institutionalizing the right people, the right processes, the right tools, the right measurement systems, so I can I can see that all the way through. I might want a superstar for cybersecurity. That becomes increasingly more important, right, in the blockchain. And so anyway, the point is, I'm looking for people who are absolutely gifted in certain domains or disciplines. And so if you think about creating, and when you think about creating your advisory team, make sure you've got the right areas of domain expertise and really the right people around you who can kind of own the vision for and the responsibilities and the roles for those. Whenever I've had or been a CMO for a company, there's always an advisor who is a baller CMO who can hold me accountable, because the CEO might not know as much as I know in marketing, but like the advisor knows what to look for and whether or not I'm really shining with all of my light or not in that role. So advisors can also help kind of mentor, guide, steward like CTOs in other roles in the company. So something else very important to consider. Okay, moving on to number 3. How we doing, guys? Are we good? Can we do some snapping? You guys with me? All right, I'm trying to bring you some wonderful Friday energy. All right, and electricity. All right, good. I know it's been a long week, and you guys know, like, come on, your week has just begun. You're founders. Yeah. I mean, hopefully you get to watch a Netflix this weekend, but I know you're working through it. All right, so playing team almost never happens, truth be told. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is most advisors aren't getting together and working as a team to support and the success of you. And so how many of you, just by show of hands, how many of you have an advisory team call with your advisors where they all get on the line and you brief them and they all, like hive mind style, come at whatever challenge is happening that week or that month for you? Anyone? I'm not surprised not to see hands go up, right? Because that's not how we typically play. But why? Why would we not play together? Instead, what happens more often than not, and I'm going to come back to this slide, is you've got your advisors. Let's say you've got, in this example, there's 8, and this is actually a real case study, with Tuft & Needle. So Tuft & Needle had, all of their advisors. I happen to be one of them. I'm calling out one of the other advisors here, which is Andy Dunn, who's the founder and CEO of Bonobos, right? So Andy was giving the co-founders of Tuft & Needle advice for years, whispering in their ear, here's what I would do if I were you. I was doing the exact same thing. Not once did they introduce me to Andy or Andy to me. Not once did I talk to Andy about Tuft & Needle, the advice I was giving them. So it's almost like mom was raising the children, daddy was raising the children. Mom and daddy never ever talked when co-parenting. Makes no sense whatsoever, right? Had Andy and I been collaborative, we could have likely given them much better advice, and we've been working together, we're creating an all-star team. So, and that's not to say that you shouldn't still have one-on-ones with advisors, because it's very important that you have an intimacy and a time where you can just have, without any group think or any, group flow, that advice, like bro to bro or, guy to girl, whatever that looks like. But also it's critically important that you play team, right? Because otherwise you're missing out on a huge opportunity. And so one of the things that we've learned and have been really evolving and expanding upon are what we're calling sparks within Supernova, where all the advisory team comes together. There's an actual facilitator and moderator. We come in with like a hot seat objective, which is like number 1, like what's the priority for this call? We need to raise capital, and like lickety split quick. And we want to find this lead investor. We want to do X, Y, and Z by, like 30, 60, 90 type playbook programming. And then everyone swarms in and says, this is what I can do to help. I can make these introductions. And by the way, when you get a bunch of advisors together that are flexing, it's like they like to show off a little bit, right? I mean, it brings out a little bit of the collaboration, but also competition in the room. They also get to meet each other and really feel like they're a part of a team. And that's really important too, as an advisor. Trust me, you guys will all sell your companies and move on and get a little lonely. And so it's nice to be able to play team again. And when advisors get engaged, like we get to feel that founder fire that you guys feel every day. It's a beautiful thing to fan and and be a part of. And so it's a way of honoring them, and it's contagious. The electricity of that engagement gets contagious. So anyway, play team with your advisors. Number 4, incentives. So these are like and there's no golden rule here, right? It's different for every single startup, but generally speaking, there is a amount of equity that will satisfy the advisor's participation in order for them just to sign the agreement so that they become an advisor for you. That does not necessarily mean that they'll then be excited and engaged and actually like wake up every day being like, I can't wait to contribute to this company, just because that was enough for them to sign. So consider, if you will, there's also starting positions for advisors. So, hey, I might give, I might give a mentor 1/10%. And my expectation of that, 1/10% of the company vested over a year or 2 years or maybe 3. And my expectation for that is that I, am able to reach out to them when I'm needing, support on something, but otherwise we might not even have a monthly call. Or I'm giving this advisor 1/4%, we're an early stage company. And my expectation is that we have, 1 call a month, and then there's some behind the scenes, time that the advisor is spending contributing to the engagement. Or I'm actually giving you 1/2 point, and I'm expecting you to be part of a special ops team. So I want you to get hands-on. I actually need you to be an interim kind of resource for me. That might be more hours a month. And they might actually have a partial role and real responsibilities, which you can actually manage, all the way to hey, I want you to take on an interim role. And advisors often, not all the time, but many of the time, they're open to that. So they might start advising, getting to know you, getting to know the company, getting really excited about your venture. And then that's a way for you to recruit them in so they actually can take reign and manage an actual project, program, or initiative with and or for you, which is absolutely critical, because otherwise, how long would it take you to recruit that individual, sign and compensate that individual, get that individual up to speed, and they may or may not work. This is a wonderful way that you get a hero to bring you from zero, to whatever you're looking for really, really quickly. So these advisors, when they do come in and join in interim capacities, can be absolutely they can be like lightning in a bottle with and or for you if they're the right resource. In terms of compensating, so obviously the traditional model is through equity. And so depending on where your company is and its valuation and how much equity you award to advisors, it could be anywhere from 5 to 10+% of your company. And depending on, what that's worth today and what that ends up becoming, it's very, very significant. So value that and make sure they value that. Additionally, additional incentives can include distributions. So advisors that are making introductions, for example, okay, if we're looking to get access to these companies because we're going to market directly, or if you're looking to create these partnerships, which will, sell through as distributors or whatever it might be, or we need to get access to these resources to help us with, the supply side or the demand side. You can include incentives, especially if you have the profitability in your model. And if you do that, they're much more likely to make those introductions and take an active role, hands-on active role in supporting you in closing those deals. I know as an advisor, when I've been given that opportunity, it's nice to see some liquidity. I mean, it's one thing as an advisor to just chalk up a bunch of equity, which is papered, that you're hoping will pull through, versus while you're doing that advising, also be receiving, distributions actively. It's a whole new way of doing things. And so consider how you can set up bonus incentives for advisors. And then lastly, and I've already kind of foreshadowed this, mentioning it multiple times, holding advisors accountable. It's something that not many founders do. It's very rare, in fact, that founders will, after signing an advisor, fire them, cancel the contract, say, hey, this isn't working, or put them on warning and let them know, hey, I don't feel like you're producing. Instead, more often than not, we recruit advisors, sign them up, and we just let them continue to vest. And even if you're not happy in the relationship, they continue to vest. It's bizarre in a way. I've done it, by the way. I've done that multiple times in my companies. And if I really go deep, it's because, I don't want to in any way upset the relationship with this heavyweight. It's I kind of, it's almost like I'm kind of, fuck that. Like absolutely no, like you are an incredible, hero on your hero's journey, and you get to respect yourself and honor yourself, and if you're showing up every day and busting your ass and doing all that you're doing, and you're expecting that from your teammates, why would you not expect that from the best of the best, who are meant to be like the superstars, like your idols, you're like the people that who are you're bringing on to help you get through the most challenging aspects and blockages on your hero's journey, the points of friction. And so hold them accountable, be transparent, be reasonable, give them warning, let them know, hey, just like in any relationship, communication is key. It's like, hey, this is not working out for me, or this is working for me. Like develop that relationship. They won't know what they don't know if you don't let them. And hold them accountable, and find the right people. If they're not coming through for you, you get to let them go, so you create space for someone else. And then also too, consider offering them, the good ones, opportunities to actually deliver the recommendations they're giving you. So, in this case of Neuromore, we had someone from Supernova giving Patrick advice on, here's how actually we believe you should be going to market. He called us out on it. It was like, great. Will you do it? Will you actually roll up your sleeves and help me get it done? And we did. And so that's another thing, right? It's easier to give people advice based on your, expertise, experience. Back in the day, this is what I did, this is what works, storytelling. It's different when, there's the opportunity of being called out or called in to action to actually do what it is you're recommending. And that also helps advisors stay very, very sharp. I don't know if you guys saw the lights just twicker, might be losing power here in a second, but I think we're almost done. So net is all-star advisory boards. If we've done anything, hopefully we've lit you up with excitement about creating a dream team that orbits around you, that has the expertise to help you get through whatever it is you're working through. Don't settle, right? Bring in the best of the best. Know that the companies that do this, and here's Chris's popcorn company, the companies that do this are able to, in some ways, significantly reduce their risk, and in some ways also kind of not guarantee, but definitely increase the probability of success. Chris and I have been involved in a company called Colossal, which launched just recently. We raised $15 million seed, and within 6 months, a $60 million Series A. I mean, that only happens when it happens because the founder is a 5-time exit founder and working with George Church from Harvard as the other co-founder, and they've got an amazing mission, which is it's a colossal mission to end extinction. So it's easier to get behind, and it happens because they know how to wield the wonders of the working world and the network effect, right? By really being able to allow everyone to kind of plug and play and have a say and a role and be able to contribute to, rapid growth. For Republic and Aurora Project, where we are founding advisors, your advisory board becomes even more important as you age, right, in later stages. And so generally in those later stages, you're not short talent around you. The key is managing that talent, like herding the cats, like the cattle, like really making sure that everyone's coming together and working and wielding what will ultimately be in the highest of wonder for the company. And so the old way of doing things is getting the supporters, having siloed calls, compromising on incentives, letting them stick around, having minimal expectations. The new normal, the new way that we're advocating, especially and seeing with the leading startups these days, it's a new world. You're all birthing it through Web3. I mean, we've got a new way to be, and so be a founder that's backing founders. We're on a mission right now to recruit, and if you know of any, we're upping our supply side. We're creating the largest network of exited founders, backing founders. So as far as we know, we're the only community of exited founders on the planet today, and our our ethos is enabling collaboration across the creators, across the makers, the most successful ones, because we believe that, perhaps today it's fulfilling each other's dreams. One day we believe there will be an opportunity for venture humanity to create an all-star team that will ultimately quickly team together to do some things for the world that otherwise couldn't be done. So we have that potential, we have that promise. This is not a pitch. We wanted to share this advice and best practice and these best practices and perspective with all of you anyway. And just wanted to say that, there's some wonderful things that VCs can support you with. There's wonderful things that advisors can support you with. There's also some things Supernova could do that might be right for you. We're not right for everyone. And so if you are interested, we would very much like to hear from you. And if there's a real good alignment and match, we'd love to work with and or for you. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you. Awesome. Well, I know it's been an hour. Hopefully it's been a good hour. I know we've had a lot of fun being able to show up and shine some light on hopefully what will be a subject that will really support, nurture your growth and well-being, not just professionally, but equally personally. And so the last thing I just will say or leave you with is, don't be afraid to get really vulnerable with advisors. Be really transparent. The deeper you're allowing yourself to be, gives them permission to do the same. And oftentimes there's some real magic that manifests when that happens. Relationships are meant to be intimate. Yeah. And so that intimacy increases engagement between you two. It fosters and facilitates richer context and conversations and ultimately collaborations. And so, if you feel like you've got advisors that are just really arm's length away, that's not okay. These are the people that, like Yoda literally sitting on, Luke Skywalker's back. I mean, they have your back. They're the whisperers. They're not looking to take credit. They love you. They not just like you, hopefully they love you. Or maybe they don't even like you or love you, but they love the work that you do. And so whatever that is, bring that passion, bring that zest. And just make sure they're the best and that you're doing your best, and good things will manifest. Okay. Whoa.
What a piece of
Guys.
advice. Thank you so much, Barry. It was amazing. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the energy. What a great way to wrap up this accelerator program. Guys,
Thank you.